Okay, I'm really excited to speak to Grazel again. We're going to be diving into neurodivergency one more time. So, Grazel, let's just kind of get into this a little bit. Um, how does therapy help neurodivergent people to cope with their relationships and kind of cope in social dynamics?
So for the relationships part of the question, therapy can help figure out how neurodivergent traits and the non-neurodivergent partner's responses to the neurodivergent traits is affecting their romantic relationship or work performance for individual clients or for school performances. I think therapy is so helpful in giving the client understanding on how their neurodivergence can be improved in a way that provides a lot of behavioral modifications.
Yeah, and I know neurodivergency is a very big umbrella, but do you find that any commonalities among people who are neurodivergent in terms of how they come to therapy and kind of the challenges they have?
Yes and no. I think this is what's so fascinating about working with neurodivergent folks is because there's so just everyone shows up very differently. So I could have six folks with ADHD and they all have difficulty with different traits of ADHD.
Mm.
So they can be similar in some of the difficulties they're having, and they can also be different. So it really depends. You just have to relate to the person and cannot generalize every everyone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that sort of begs the question, why do we even have these labels? Because if it's just a case of we just deal with the person in front of us, then what's the value of saying someone has ADHD? Do you have a take on that?
I do. I definitely agree with you. Like the labels are there for medicalizing a certain person, and it's pretty bad. But I think if we all come to a place where we understand that everybody thinks differently, I think we will get along better.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Like if we can just come from a place where we don't medicalize or pathologize someone's brain that works differently from what's considered typical,
Mm.
I think we will have less stress in
Yeah,
our lives.
probably. There still needs to be that line of when it goes too far, though, I suppose.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, it's a fine balance between saying there's this group of traits that seem to be in common, so we're going to call it this thing because that helps us in terms of treating this type of person because we know what to expect with this type of person. But then you're then putting everyone into these little boxes, and the boxes all overlap. So it's kind of a pointless exercise
Yes.
anyway.
Right, right. And I think it's different, right? With autism, it can be a little different because there's different levels of functioning. So some folks with autism need more resources and some don't. So I think that's when probably a label is helpful, is knowing what kind of resources is available. But pathologizing it is a different story.
Absolutely. Um, so let's say someone does come to you, or let's say a couple comes to you, and one of them's got ADHD, the other one is completely neurotypical, and there's obviously a bit of a clash there because they're struggling to relate to each other. How do you adapt your approach in that situation?
I think the word adapt is very crucial to treatment, is that I really need and other therapists need to be able to adapt to the difference of both part of the difference of the brain. So for emotionally focused therapy, which is what I specialize in, as you know, I've been providing training to other EFT therapists and other therapists in general on how to adapt the treatment of neurodivergence into their EFT work because it's so crucial. You need to be able to know how to use your interventions in a way that caters to the difference of the each of the partner's brains. So I don't know if you want me to go into an example now, but yeah. For example, um, someone who's neurodivergent, for example, someone who has ADHD, their brains it's so busy that they're always thinking about something. A neurotypical brain is not that busy. That's why it's easier for them to focus. When you think about a busy brain and there's so many ideas popping up, well, it's going to be hard for you to focus logically, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but it becomes a problem when partners are not relating because the brain is not as focused on one thing, and the neurotypical brain is saying, well, let's try to focus on this. This is the most important thing right now, right? Well, the ADHD brain thinks that everything is important. So how are they going to focus on one thing that the neurotypical thinks about that's important when the other brain says, well, everything is important.
Yeah. And what about this? And what
So
about
now
this?
it
And what
comes
about this? And what
to,
about this? And what about this? And then the
yeah, now it
neurotypical
comes,
is trying to keep up.
yes, the neurotypical is trying to keep up, and the neurodivergence not understanding, well, we don't really have to focus on that one thing. We can bring all these ideas in. And so they just need to create a system that balances and accepts how different they are and how similar they can be. But it's a system that's going to have to work for both brains, not for one particular brain.
Yeah. And I guess for me, it's very difficult to think how a system like that can actually work because if you've got one person who's maybe a little bit rigid, like the neurotypical person, they're a bit rigid, then like, I want to focus on this one thing. The neurodivergent person is kind of a bit all over the place and wanting to do a million things at once. How do you find the connection point there as a therapist?
As a therapist, and I have to understand how they're viewing their partner and how they're viewing themselves in that type of dynamic. Because usually what happens is that attachment insecurities come up when partners don't relate. They feel that they're doing something wrong most of the time, right? So I target one partner's um, understanding about how their partner approaches the situation and vice versa. Once I find that place in which they get stuck, then I try to provide understanding with the use of emotions. It's a lot of work. It's different. Like I can go on and on and on. It's going to be a different session if you want me to do that. But that's practically the work that I have to do is finding where are the sources of contention and disconnection? And is it because they feel like they're not being understood or they're not being cared for? Most of the time, when there's a different brain, when there's different brain wirings, it results in that kind of feeling. I'm not important enough. You don't listen to me. You're always so busy with other things that's of interest to you, but never to my interest.
Mhm.
Whenever I bring something up that I'm interested in, you're not interested. So it can go on and on. So once I find that with them, then I provide them with a lot of psychoeducation about how to treat it, how to work with it.
Which I guess then completely diffuses the situation because they suddenly realize. I think you framed it in a very good way a few interviews ago, where you said you try and make it rather than one person against the other, it's them both against the cycle. And it's that similar sort of thing. Like it's not us against each other. It's just you have this thing going on with you, and I have this thing going on with me. We just need to find a way to relate to each other's thing better.
Yes, yeah. And how do we do that, right? And that's when therapy can help. What are the things that you both can do individually for the sake of creating a harmonious relationship.
Yeah.
And they both have a role to play.
Yeah. Um, so last question. We spoke about this a little bit before we hit record. Have you got an example of an occasion where where therapy has really helped a neurodivergent client to improve their connection with maybe their partner?
Yes, so therapy can help in so many ways. Just for example, like if a neurodiverse couple comes in when one partner is neurotypical and one partner, let's say, have ADHD, and they're saying, Grazel, we have a problem in communication, right? Like, for example, they're saying it's been ongoing for us to have issues surrounding planning. My husband will agree on something that he doesn't follow through on, right? So in therapy, I'm going to look at, okay, where is this coming from? How come the husband is having difficulty following through on a he would do? And then it leaves his partner, in a place where I'm not important enough. You're not listening to me. You said you would do this,
Mhm.
but then you say yes all the time and never follow through on it. I am so tired of this, right? I, as the therapist, will go in and look at what's causing the lack of follow through. And if the ADHD partner is aware of that, then it's a lot easier to be able to talk about it. But if the ADHD partner is not aware of that, then a lot of psychoeducation will be helpful. Now, when it comes to lack of follow through, understanding that this is what the brain does, it's not intentional, and giving psychoeducation to the partner who doesn't understand it can lessen the personalization of the ADHD trait. The problem is, most of the time, the non-ADHD partner is so tired of accommodating for the ADHD partner's unmanaged ADHD traits. So they may come up and say, I don't want to do that. I'm so tired. Another way of understanding my partner, and I feel like I'm doing so much. Validating the exhaustion of the non-ADHD partner is so helpful, and making them feel like, no, it's completely okay to feel tired of it. This is an ongoing cycle for both of you, right? That can be very helpful to just feel heard and validated that they're not doing something wrong either.
Yeah, that's really interesting to see how it kind of works in practice and how you take that kind of one specific issue around the guy not following through and you sort of dive into it and you go down the layers and you really get to the core of the issue and then you talk about that and it diffuses the whole um the like power not the power like the level of discord is what I'm trying to say.
It
Yeah.
does. It diffuses it now because there's dialogue about how that one unmanaged ADHD trait that's non-intentional becomes so personalized. And the more we talk about it in therapy, the partners understand, oh, it's a different brain wiring. It's not about, and it's creating a cycle, but we don't have to be against each other. It's the cycle that we can look at and de-escalate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the really important thing to remember in any kind of couples therapy, particularly with EFT, as we've spoken about a lot before. So yeah, that's a great point to end on. Thanks, Grazel.
You're welcome. Thanks, Scott.